What is going on, everybody? I am AV Obsessed, and if you're watching this video on my channel, that means that you probably are too. And today I'm going to be doing the review of the Rotel RB-1590, absolute beast of a power amplifier. The unboxing of this amp went up a few weeks ago. If you haven't watched that video, you can go ahead and watch that one here. And if you have watched that video, then stay tuned for the full review. So, the Rotel RB-1590 is a pretty beastly power amplifier for an MSRP of, it's around $4,400, $4,300. I think Best Buy has it at $4,400 and Crutchfield has it for $4,300. But it's an absolute monster of a power amplifier, weighing 84 pounds, full class AB. It is a fully dual mono design. So this thing has two completely separate amplifier boards inside of it, and there are two completely independent toroidal transformers, one for the left and one for the right channel. I got some B-roll with the cover taken off of the amp so that you could see what it looks like with the cover taken off. It's hard to see the stacked toroidal transformers. I basically got my camera in as close as I could so you could see it, but I don't know if you're going to be able to tell from that. But there are two completely separate toroidals in here, two completely separate amp boards. So it is actually a fully dual mono class AB amplifier, rated at 350 watts per channel into 8 ohms. And then for some reason, Rotel doesn't give you a 4 or an 8 ohm power rating, but I would assume that this beast is probably putting out at least 600 watts per channel when you go to a 4 ohm load. One disadvantage of the fact that it's a fully dual mono design is the fact that you cannot buy a pair of these and switch them into a bridged mono mode and use two of these as monstrous mono blocks. That is one of the few downsides of this amplifier. But it comes in at 84 pounds. It's your standard 17-inch wide component, 17 and 7/8 of an inch deep, and 9 3/4 of an inch tall. So you need a big cabinet or rack to hold this monster. And it has on the back, I'll show the B-roll of the back. You've got RCA and XLR inputs with a little toggle switch to toggle between the two. And then you've got 12-volt trigger functionality, which I love. And if anybody who has a power amplifier connected to a preamp or an AV receiver and isn't using 12-volt trigger, you're doing it wrong. But yeah, it's got 12-volt trigger in and out, so you can daisy chain multiple 12-volt trigger devices together, and then the little toggle switch next to that for turning on and off the 12-volt trigger function. And then you've actually got 2 pairs of binding posts per speaker, so you can bi-wire each individual speaker and just basically get lower impedance from using twice as much conductor from going from your output terminals on the back of the receiver or the amplifier to your speakers. First, I should talk about the extremely few and minor complaints that I have about this power amplifier. And I already talked about one, the fact that since it is a fully dual mono design, there isn't any way of basically putting a pair of these into bridged mono mode and using them as big, huge, monstrous mono blocks. The other disadvantage to this amp is in the power button right here. It'd be kind of nice if there was a way to defeat this light or change the color of it. Like when I did the review of the Rotel A8 integrated, you can turn on and off, or actually you can adjust the brightness and the color of the lights, but on this power amp, there's no ability to do anything. It's always glowing blue. One thing that is nice about this amp versus when I had the RB-1582, which is basically the little brother to this amplifier, At least the light does turn off when the amp is in standby mode, because when I was using the RB-1582 with the 12 volt trigger set up, if that power button is pressed in, then the LED ring light around the power button is on, like no matter what. On this one, when you have the power button pressed in and you have the 12 volt trigger system turned on, when the receiver or preamp tells the amplifier to go into standby mode, the light does turn off at least. I mean, it's such a minor thing, but when I first got this amp after having the RB-1582 Mark II and saw that the light turned off when the receiver told the amplifier to go into standby mode, I was actually like really excited about that, because this is how nerdy I am about hi-fi stuff. And then the last complaint that I have about this amplifier, and it is the most substantial complaint that I would have about it, is the noise floor isn't as low as I was hoping and expecting it to be. It's not terrible, but it's not as good as I was hoping. Like if you are within, like, I mean, and my Cantons are some pretty efficient speakers here. And if I get my ear to within about, 2 feet or so of the speaker, I can hear like a bit of, amplifier buzz and hiss noises. And I was expecting it to be a little bit better. And I have tried multiple RCA interconnects. And even when I was running the XLR interconnects directly from the Bluesound Node icon into the Rotel, it was still there. So it doesn't seem to just be noise getting into the amplifier from the interconnects. It just seems to be, in the amplifier. Like the noise floor just isn't as great as I was hoping it would be. But now all that the extremely minor complaints are out of the way, we can get into what's good about it. And what's good about it is a beast of a powerhouse for any, I mean, you could pretty much drive almost anything with this much power, other than like I have heard from, some people that, some speakers like the Bowers & Wilkins 801 D4s like need a ton of power. Like you need 1,000 watt monoblocks to like really wake those things up, is what I've heard. Maybe you can't go quite that high end with this amplifier, but I pretty much would say any other speaker on the market, you would be able to run to its fullest potential with this amplifier. What I can hear pretty like obviously and easily when going from the built-in amplification in my Marantz Cinema 30 to using the RCA pre-outs from the Cinema 30 going into this, I honestly didn't expect to hear a big difference, because of the fact that the Cinema 30 is such a high-end AV receiver. But when I basically unhooked this amplifier to set it up right here for doing this review, which I did a few hours ago, and I was listening to music for a really long time since then, it seems as though the bass doesn't have as much definition. Like the receiver, the amplification built into the receiver just doesn't have the control over the dual 8-inch woofers that my Canton towers here have. So kick drums just lacked a lot of the punchiness. Like the speed was gone and the punchiness was gone. And then I also noticed that in the treble too, even the immediacy wasn't quite there. It basically felt like the speakers were being hindered a little bit. Like this is gonna be super, super nerdy, but there is a specification that some amplifier manufacturers talk about called the slew rate, which is basically how quickly the voltage can amp up. And I have a feeling that, something like this, a really high current, like monstrous class AB solid state power amplifier, has some lightning fast slew rate, and the amplification that's built into an AV receiver is probably nowhere near as good. And so essentially the attack on cymbals just wasn't there anymore. Like if I hadn't been just listening to this amplifier for months, I wouldn't have noticed how much of a difference there was, but then with this amplifier in there, there's just so much more attack and speed in even the high frequency stuff. And then obviously it makes a really big difference in the low frequency stuff too. So adding a big power amp like this to some, you know, like pretty demanding speakers, even though these Cantons are a fairly efficient speaker, I believe they're rated at like 89 dB sensitivity, but the manufacturer does also recommend an amplifier somewhere between 180 and 340 watts, I believe is what it says on the back of the speakers. And so basically going up to a 350 watt per channel AB amplifier like this seemed to wake up the Cantons more than I have ever heard them before, essentially. Like, just, yeah, the attack in treble and bass is noticeably better. Soundstage and imaging, I'm kind of was expecting to hear more of a difference because of the fact that this thing is a fully dual mono design, but I really didn't hear much of a difference in that. It's mostly about just like the speed and control that this amp has versus the amplification that's built into something like the Marantz Cinema 30. So would I recommend this monstrous power amplifier to you guys? And the answer to that question is obviously it's complicated. You're never going to get a straight answer out of me when it comes to something like that, because the requirements for owning an amplifier like this are so high. Like, firstly, you need to have some pretty demanding speakers to need an amplifier like this versus using the built-in amplification in your AV receiver. And then also, you would have to have a budget that allows for spending this much money on an amplifier, because it is a pretty expensive piece of equipment. And I'm not going to be one of these people, like, if you ever look at audiophile forums and stuff like that, everyone always makes it sound like, oh, I swapped out this cable and it made this massive, like, night and day difference. Or I swapped out this other piece and it made this massive night and day difference. And it's never a night and day difference. The only thing that really can make a night and day difference, I believe at this point, if you have all like pretty decent AV gear, are the speakers. Like the speakers are pretty much the only thing that makes a massive night and day difference. This amplifier, I would say, improvement over the amplification that's built into the Marantz is probably 10 or 15%. And if you're gonna watch this video and say, I can't imagine spending $4,000 on an amplifier for a 10 or a 15% improvement, that means that the product's not for you. Not every product is made for every person. I get a lot of people in the comments on my videos. I had one on one of my recent videos where he said, I'll never understand audiophiles. I have a Sony receiver and Klipsch reference Premier speakers, and I can't imagine it would make that much of a difference if I spent 10 grand on higher end electronics and speakers. And you would be, like, I would say 90% correct. Like, it isn't going to make a massive night and day difference, not in comparison to the, like, you know, $1,500 or so that you have invested into your system, going from that to a $10,000 system. It's gonna make a pretty significant difference, but if you are enjoying what you have and you don't have the budget to spend thousands of dollars on upgrading it, then you can just enjoy what you have. But there are people that can afford stuff like this. I would consider myself barely one of them. Like, I had to finance this on my Best Buy credit card. I don't have the money to just go and splurge on things like this. Like, this thing took me, you know, a couple of months to pay off. But yeah, for me, I think that extra 10 or 15% of sound quality that I'm getting out of an amplifier like this versus what's built into the receiver is worth it. So for me, it's worth it. And if you are like me and you're obsessed with this stuff and you have enough disposable income to afford it, then yes, I would say I 100% recommend this amplifier. It's a really nice unit, and the very few complaints that I have about it are very minor, especially the thing about not being able to put it into a bridged mono mode, because like the chances of me wanting to buy a second one of these and have two of them running in bridged mono, if that was a possibility, I would probably never do it anyways. So yeah, I mean, it's a great amp. Lots of power. Like, I have a feeling that this is the kind of amp that I can grow with if I were to upgrade my speakers in the not too distant future, or even in the distant future, because this will probably be a great amplifier for years, like decades. So it's totally worth it if you're as obsessed with this stuff as I am. So that's my recommendation. If you feel the need to leave a comment saying, I can't imagine spending this much money on a unit like that, then it's not for you. So, but if it's the kind of thing that you could imagine buying, then maybe it is for you. And in that case, I would recommend it. So with that conclusion, I am AV obsessed, and I think that you probably are too. So kind of an awkward sign out, but if you watch this far into the video, then I can kind of let loose and be a little bit awkward. So I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, one more piece that I just wanted to add in at the end of this video, and then after I sell this thing, I can remove this segment of the video. But I have decided, I don't know if you guys saw my YouTube short that I posted talking about the fact that Best Buy is no longer going to be carrying Macintosh. I decided that while I still can, I wanted to get myself a Macintosh amplifier. So I went ahead and ordered a Macintosh MC462 450 watt per channel stereo power amplifier. Just wanted to do that while I still can get, because I have a way of getting a good deal at this with this stuff through Best Buy, and with the 24-month zero interest that I get on my Best Buy card. I decided I was just going to go ahead and order one of those through my local Magnolia, and it's just such an expensive amplifier. I mean, I still might end up canceling the order and not taking it because it is so much money, but I figure I might as well put in the order. And then even though this is such a great amplifier, I don't need this and the Macintosh. So if somebody wants to get a really good deal on this thing, I will be posting it on AudioGone. And I may also post if you guys watched the video for the Focal Vestia #1s, I think I'm going to try to sell those as well. So maybe I'll just put a generic link to like my AudioGone store if I can do that. Otherwise, there'll be individual links for the Focals and the Rotel amplifier here. That way I can use the money from selling those to go towards the Macintosh amp that I have always wanted but have never really had the funds to buy. This will go a significant way towards it, and then the Focals will be a very small chunk towards it. But yeah, so if you guys watched all the way to the end of the video and you can see that I have these things for sale and it's something that you're interested in picking up, go ahead and click on the links in the description, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Hopefully within a couple of months, it'll be an unboxing and first look, and then a review of a Macintosh MC462. See ya.